Welcome to Opportunities for Growth in Michigan and the Midwest, which is part of the Growth Virtual Speaker Series. I'm your moderator, Rosie, Mattio. I'm founder of Mattio Communications. We're the preeminent communications agency for the cannabis industry, and really excited to be here today with our panelists, who are Rebecca Colett of Calyxeum, Fabian Monaco of Gage, and Meredith Mahoney of Lantern. I just want to talk a little bit about what we are talking about today. So as you know, 2020 was a pivotal year for Michigan, with the Wolverine State generating over $500 million in sales. With retail and regulatory tailwinds picking up across the country, the question remains, will Michigan be able to maintain this current momentum and push the Midwest to become the dominant market in this historically conservative region? So in this conversation, we'll be talking to our panelists about what the future of expansion looks like in the state and how the state is leading by example on the social equity front, which is super important. So let's get into it. First, Meredith, Rebecca, and Fabian, can you please introduce yourselves to our viewers and give us a brief overview of your company and background in the industry? I will kick it off with Meredith.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Great to be here. Meredith Mahoney from Lantern. I am about a year and a few months into the cannabis industry. Prior to that, I've spent my career in direct-to-consumer, digitally native businesses, so a great fit for what Lantern does, which is on-demand cannabis delivery for consumers to shop via marketplace.
Yeah. Great. Fabian?
Hi, I'm Fabian. I'm the CEO and director of Gage Cannabis. We're one of the larger vertically integrated cannabis companies in Michigan. We've partnered with Cookies, which is a preeminent and I should say illustrious brand in Michigan as well. We have 7 dispensaries across the state so far and looking to get to 20 plus by the end of this year.
That's awesome. And Rebecca, introduce yourself.
Nice. Hi, guys. Happy to be here. My name is Rebecca Colett. I'm the CEO of Calyxeum, which is a cultivation and processing brand based in Detroit, Michigan.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, all three of you. So let's just get into some of the questions. Recreational sales in Michigan have only been available for a little over a year, and the state has experienced unbelievable demand in 2020. I think we reported around $500 million in sales. So, COVID-related lockdowns definitely played a significant role in these numbers. But Phoebe and Rebecca, what other factors do you think influenced consumer demand this year?
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say is people are working from home, so they're a little bit more stressed out with what that comes with, juggling being a full-time teacher, caring for children, being in a cluttered house, and they need some relaxation. So we've seen a lot of people turn to cannabis as being a holistic health and wellness component to their journey. COVID has been all about health and wellness, about your immunity, about your immune system. And we've definitely seen people turn to cannabis as more of a natural approach to stress relief, anxiety relief. And also, a lot of people have went through a lot of tragic circumstances during this COVID pandemic and have used cannabis as a way to cope with a lot of things that they're dealing with.
So yeah, just to follow up on that. So, funny enough, total sales in Michigan were actually closer to $1 billion when you include the medical sales. It was actually 985 for 2020, and it was frankly just right behind Illinois as the 5th largest market, which was Illinois, and Michigan was the 6th largest market in 2020. So Michigan pretty much catapulted itself to pretty much almost a top 5 market in a short period of time. And I think we can attribute that also to just the medical patient base in Michigan. The caregiver model has been around for over 10 years in Michigan. We have a strong medical consumer base. We have a kind of consumer base that is used to the product, that embraces the product. And I think the numbers that we saw in COVID, while surprising and obviously a quick ramp in terms of sales that we saw on the adult use side of things in Michigan, I think it's only going to get bigger. Regardless if these COVID kind of lockdown provisions stay in place or not.
Yeah, and I want to ask you guys. So, is this high consumer demand and patient demand coming primarily from the larger cities in Michigan, or are you seeing an uptick in demand in more suburban areas? What does the makeup of the Michigan market look like? And any of you can answer this.
Yeah, so we at Lantern, we are delivering primarily into Detroit. I mean, we're delivering all around the Metro Detroit area as well as Ann Arbor and soon to be Grand Rapids. But most of the deliveries we're doing are into Detroit proper. And I think that makes sense given that we're servicing an adult use community there that can get it within the city limits today. So, and that's consistent with the other markets we're in as well, that it's primarily for us the urban neighborhoods.
And what about you, Rebecca? What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's just kind of weird with the Metro Detroit area right now, where it's a lot of recreational sales happening right outside the city, while recreational sales inside the city limits are still not available. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of purchasing from the suburbs.
And Fabian, you guys have opened some outfits, and most recently, like in Kalamazoo. Talk to us about, what you guys are seeing about in terms of growth in the market.
Yeah, so funny enough, we're seeing growth in pretty much every city that we go into, to be honest with you, even some smaller cities. So one of our locations, I believe it was our second location that we've had, which is Adrian. We opened that back in 2019. Adrian's a small city, and yet you're just seeing a huge influx in even out-of-state purchasers coming to that particular city to purchase product, being an adult use city. If you take a look at our more recent dispensary opening, which was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is close to the Indiana border, you're seeing a lot of out-of-state patients come and a lot of out-of-state consumers come for adult use to a lot of the dispensaries that are in, let's call it maybe smaller cities, and that you generally wouldn't think there would be a lot of sales or a lot of demand. But we're being, pleasantly surprised that, frankly, in every location, where we go, demand seems to be extremely, extremely strong across the Michigan market, regardless if it's a small city or even a big city.
Right. So now that you're noticing residents from other neighboring states coming to Michigan to buy legal products, what do you think this signals to the future of the Midwest market?
Yeah, I mean, so for the Midwest market, I think it's going to surprise, quite a few people when you start to look at, that as a region in terms of sales in total. You see a lot of, growth and strength in the Illinois market. You're obviously seeing it in Michigan as well. If you take a look at Ohio, very similar demographics, I'd say, in terms of population to Michigan and Illinois, and frankly, similar consumption habits as well. As that program starts to develop, and I guess more and more of the operators come online, because it's been a little bit slow on the operation side of things as a state, I think it's going to really, really surprise people in terms of just how big the numbers could be. You have, pretty much just those three states in and of themselves, some very, very strong, consuming states on a per capita basis. And so we're particularly excited about their growth.
Yeah. And so with this growth, and Rebecca, I'll turn this over to you first, and maybe Fabian, you also can chime in, because I know you're both vertically integrated. How are you guys able to anticipate or prepare for the surge on the cultivation side? You're not only, serving the Michigan market, we are seeing people coming from other states. Talk to us about preparation on cultivation and scaling.
Yeah, the good thing about Michigan is that Michigan is a pretty mature market in regards to cultivation. Like Fabian cited earlier, caregivers have been active in the Michigan growing community since 2008. So we have a lot of talented cultivation and growing talent in Michigan, which is great, because when COVID kind of happened and we had to kind of get on our toes and pivot and learn how to scale, finding talented workforce, growers, trimmers was not an issue, because Michigan has been a market that has been in the legacy growing game for a minute. And I'm always a huge advocate for Michigan cultivation, because everybody always talks Cali this, Cali that. And I say, what about Michigan? We've been caregiving and growing on smaller scales, home grows for over 10 years now. So what was helpful was definitely having the skilled workforce in Michigan to turn to and ramp up staff, for instance.
Yeah, Fabian, what about you? The market's growing, but also, you've added more stores. How did you guys prepare for growth?
Yeah, no, first off, I love that Rebecca actually mentioned, the quality of Michigan and, how long that particular state's been growing. We have so many people that come out of state, potential partners of ours that actually look at the product that's grown and the quality of the product, and some of the best product in the country, frankly. As she mentioned, there's a lot of talk about Cali this and Cali that. I would encourage, absolutely everyone that's listening to actually come to Michigan and kind of see what it's all about, because you're basically getting the best weed in the country, in my humble opinion. And, in terms of us and our growth, we obviously doubled our footprint in terms of cultivation in December. We underestimated the demand actually in the 2020 year. We kept on selling out of product on a consistent basis. And so we're really happy to actually have, a doubling of our production in December, and that's really helped us grow in Q1. More importantly, we've had a huge ramp up in our contract grow partners as well. We were up to actually 10 different contract growers across 10 different facilities in Michigan. So by the end of Q3, we'll have 13 different facilities growing Gage and Cookies product. Right now we have 7. By the end of this month, we're going to be adding another 2. So we'll have 9 different facilities. It's probably one of the larger footprints in terms of cultivation, frankly, in the Midwest as a whole. And more importantly, it's allowed us to really ramp up our not only our top line, but also our growth as a predominant, preeminent retailer.
That's awesome. And I want to shift a little bit to Meredith. As an e-commerce marketplace and delivery platform, and you're operating in 2 other regions, Massachusetts and Colorado, I want to talk a little bit about the consumer preferences and trends that are specific to Michigan. What are you seeing, from consumer preferences?
Yes, so the trends we're seeing are sort of related to how we're meeting the demand in each market by delivering convenient access to adult use products. And the reasons that people are coming to Lantern for that convenient on-demand delivery are different by market. So in Detroit, I think it's really about access to adult use product without having to drive outside the city limits. That, if you order from Lantern, you can get it within 60 minutes and it's really convenient. You have a lot of choice. Given the fact that adult use is coming soon, hopefully in Detroit, we've been able to kind of bridge that gap in the interim. In the Boston area where we're also operating, it's really more driven by the fact that people don't have as many dispensaries per capita. So getting to a dispensary isn't convenient. It's hard to park. There are lines. And then what we're anticipating when we launch in the Denver area and the Aurora area in the next few weeks in Colorado is really more about selection and being able to have a wide selection of products to choose from versus just ordering directly from one dispensary. And then when you think about kind of product category trends, we're actually seeing a lot of similarities across markets. So at least for us on an e-commerce marketplace, we're seeing flower is really the dominant category, but edibles is the fastest growing category, and then vapes is third. And then what I think is really interesting about Michigan is that our Michigan customers are really, really choosing Michigan-centric native brands. So Pleasantries, Cloud Cover, Flourish, they're always among the top 3 week after week for us.
Yeah. So, and I want to open this to the rest of you too. So in terms of like preferences, what do you think differentiates Michigan from the other adult use markets?
Yeah, I was going to jump in here. So what I've seen, because we started as a small caregiver operation, so having that direct to patient contact is something that I've had for years now. So I've been able to kind of just evaluate Michigan consumers, and they know their stuff. They know their stuff, and they are not afraid to spend a pretty penny on high quality product. And so that's what I've seen definitely, and just the difference in consumer in Michigan in comparison to maybe some other state markets is that the cannabis consumer in Michigan a lot of times is very sophisticated. They know exactly what they want. They know exactly what indicas and sativas are. They're okay with paying a little bit more of a premium on price, just as long as the quality is there. They're very familiar with cannabis. That's what I've seen for sure.
So Fabian, to that point, you guys must have lines at the door for cookies. If it's a sophisticated market, people who understand brand and the profile of cannabis, talk to us. You must be seeing things, from an interesting view also.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'd say demand is off the charts for our product offering on a consistent basis over the past couple months. Similar to what Rebecca said, it's a refined consumer in Michigan. It's competitive. They know exactly what they want. They've been consuming product from individuals and entities that have been growing product, for over a decade. You have also people that have been going to dispensaries now for over a decade as well. And so you really have a refined consumer there. You need to have top-notch quality, product offering, and frankly, even service offering at your dispensary. People want basically, high-end product. And like Rebecca said, they're willing to pay. it's a common misconception. People think, oh, it's Michigan, and people just, want to pay for, their cannabis for as little as they can. Not the case at all. Our average basket sizes are quite high. And, we have consumers coming on average about, 2 to 2.2 times in a given month to our stores. And when you kind of couple that with the average basket size, it's quite a bit of money. It's over $300. And so, having someone, or at least an average customer, come and spend that much money, it's rather surprising to most. But again, not surprising to probably everyone on this call, because again, we knew Michigan for a long, long time was going to be a massive market. We knew it was going to be a top 5 market. In fact, it may even be a top 3 market this year, as Illinois and Michigan battle it out to see if they can overtake Florida in the number 3 spot.
So Meredith, in addition to access, how do you think a marketplace delivery platform like Lantern will accelerate consumer adoption, not only in Michigan, but throughout the Midwest? Let's talk about, what rollout of delivery and e-commerce means for this market.
Yeah, so delivery is how customers have always gotten their cannabis. It's an entrenched behavior before legalization. That's pretty much how you would obtain your product. And so it's unlike other categories, you don't need to teach the consumer that they should get their cannabis delivered. That's just a behavior they already understand. So what we're excited about is delivery being a point of access that the customer understands really can open the market to many, many people. And whether they just want convenience, or they want a lot of selection, or maybe they feel stigma going to a dispensary, or don't even really know what they want. Like, there's just a lot of ways that a marketplace and delivery can facilitate, access for a lot more people. And then, outside of Michigan, where we're seeing states start to legalize, there's just going to be this big influx of new consumers to the legal market. And that's really exciting to be able to offer them delivery for all the reasons that I just mentioned. So COVID obviously accelerated people's interest in delivery, but that trend was going to happen. I think it just kind of pushed it forward quite a bit.
Yes, so that really does speak a little bit, obviously, to the adult use market. And for context, Michigan recreational sales jumped 482% in 2020. Obviously, some of this fueled by COVID. And the state is projected to reach $3 billion in the next 4 years, which is just wild to think about. Fabian, so for you, Gage has substantial retail footprint in the state. So what steps are you guys taking to make sure that you're scaling sustainably, not compromising the product of the quality as demand continues to climb? Because those numbers are pretty staggering.
Yeah, I'm going to touch again upon a point I made earlier. So, really our relationship with our contract growers, again, these are high quality growers, indoor quality as well. We, went through a painstaking process in terms of picking who we wanted to work with. We had a lot of inbounds in terms of, licensed producers wanting to grow exclusively for us and for cookies. And so we spent our time throughout the summer and in Q3 and Q4 making sure that we really added a proper roster on our team. And through our relationships with them and for our continual kind of support as well operationally, we're obviously in a scenario where we're getting great quality product coming in our door as if we grew it ourselves. As Rebecca mentioned earlier, there are some great cultivators, some great operators in the state of Michigan. So it's not very hard to find, operators to frankly just grow with you as a brand and as a company.
I realized after this conversation, I must come out to Michigan because you're going to be very excited about the quality of product. And, I'm in a state right now that's, going recreational. I'm in New Jersey, and there's certainly political and consumer support for adult use cannabis around the country. But obviously a lot of negotiations have been stalled, especially on the East Coast. We're still working things out here. We're hoping things are going to happen in New York over the next couple of weeks, if not this week. But state legislators can't agree on effective social equity programs. And so far, it seems like Michigan actually has been leading by example in this area. So I want to open this to all of you, because all of you guys have, some great programs in place. How are private businesses and operators taking it upon themselves to push equity and working with the public sector to reach their goals? How are you guys doing it? Talk a little bit about your programs. Any of you can jump in here and start.
Well, I'll start here. I'm all about equity. One thing I noticed is, to be an operator in cannabis, you have to be very engaged in policy in local municipality, you need to know who the council people are. You need to know who's on the regulatory board. So in this lobbying and really discovering what the gaps are in social equity, a lot of times, you know, with these programs, a lot of municipalities and states, you've seen it a lot of times happen in like California. It's because a lot of these programs promise they're going to do something, and nothing ever happens. So I think it's pretty great to start to see some private cannabis companies kind of come together and put together programs, resources to help increase equity in the cannabis industry. And I'll speak for ourselves. At Calyxeum and in Detroit, in partnership with Lantern, we've created this amazing incubator program, which I think fills a lot of the gaps that a lot of social equity programs don't fill, which is really helping applicants with that technical assistance, that knowledge, that business acumen that you may not have access to, because as an equity applicant, you may not be able to afford a very expensive cannabis consultant or something like that that could help you with the license. So we put together this programming and incubator program that really walks a social equity applicant from beginning to end of the Michigan application process. And we're marrying it up with the Detroit adult use application date, because another issue with these social equity programs is oftentimes they're too late. The cannabis companies, they've already been flooded with these multi-million-dollar operators, multi-state operators. And now it's too late for the social equity applicant to really get into the market and gain some market share. So that's another reason that we were so passionate about releasing this now before it's too late, giving access and knowledge to social equity applicants at the right time. As we all know on this panel, cannabis is a very timely industry. Changes happen every week, sometimes almost every day. And we have to be abreast of those changes and be ready to act on those changes to really be effective. So yeah, I'm really excited about these technical resources that we put together. The Detroit Cannabis Project is what we've called it. We rolled it out at the beginning of this week, so we're really excited to be partnering with the regulatory agency here in Michigan, the MRA, to launch it to social equity applicants across Michigan.
Yeah, and Meredith, can you go into a little more detail on it?
I first just need to thank Rebecca for welcoming us into her city and giving us the opportunity to help her and everything she's gotten started already. We run an incubator program in Massachusetts, and we actually started it before we started Lantern. It had about a 6 to 9 month head start. So to Rebecca's point, it is critical just to start programming and support and resources well before any licensing starts, just so that people are ready. And it's been incredible. I mean, we've really partnered closely with the social equity community in Massachusetts. Lantern's a startup, and myself and my team, we are from the world of startups and we're entrepreneurs. And so I think personally for me, it's so energizing to get to work with entrepreneurs all day and just see the innovation and the businesses they're building. And it really does create a very productive and effective business cycle, a loop as well, because, you know, at least in Massachusetts, the primary businesses they're creating are both dispensaries and third-party delivery companies, which fit perfectly into our marketplace ecosystem. And you know, we're able to provide eyeballs and volume to their businesses. They're able to provide this really critical part of our supply chain. So I think that really gets to the heart of how I think, you know, we in private business need to you know, play a big part in social equity initiatives. It can't just be from the point of view of your moral compass, although that is important too. For me, it really has to come from this place of being like mission critical to the business, and you have to weave it into everything you do, so that if the people with good moral compass get hit by a bus and don't run the company in a year, you've really woven it into the point where it cannot be erased. It has to be an important piece. You know, I think about, we need to hire business leaders from communities of color. We need to carry Black-owned brands. We need to support and finance these entrepreneurs. We need to support initiatives in higher education that teach underrepresented students how to start these businesses. Like, if you think about all the resources that any of us had to start our businesses, that's what we're really going after to try to provide to these entrepreneurs.
I love that. And Fabian, you guys have a really interesting program. I'd love you to talk to us all about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've dedicated, approximately $1 million to social equity programs in Michigan, and specifically our own. We've already given 3 different $50,000 grants. It's funny. We actually, before it became, not to sound critical or anything, but before it became, flavor of the month in terms of, promoting social equity amongst, a lot of the private and public companies, we had actually implemented it quite early. And one of our first recipients, he actually was one of the first to come out, with certain concentrates in the state of Michigan. So it's, the way we look at it, it's almost like a win-win situation, for both of us that are involved, the social equity recipient grant and also us as a company. We provide them with, the capital and the operational support. And some of these individuals, again, have been in the industry for quite some time in Michigan and are some great, producers or processors or cultivators. And it really helps elevate our brand to actually showcase these individuals and their brands within our store. And so we're particularly excited about the program. We're constantly on the hunt for, more and more people to, be a part of our program. And, frankly, the individual that was our first recipient, from the amount of money that he received from us and, how he was able to do in his first year of operation, it was like something like 60 or 70 times more he was able to make, and, in top line from what he was able to get from us. And so just to see someone who's, been disadvantaged historically to now, get just even a small grant and some operational support and move towards obviously being, one of the great concentrate brands in the space is just very nice to see. And, we have a couple other things in store. We have a big announcement coming hopefully on 420 when it comes to social equity. So we're particularly excited about that. So stay tuned.
I love all these initiatives, guys. It's really amazing to hear. And, we all know too well that, these regulations start off as well-meaning, right? But often create even more barriers to entry for communities that have been targeted in the war on drugs. So are there any particular regulations you hope will change in Michigan that can help you guys, with your missions to give back? And also, and I want to target part of this to Rebecca, from your experience, working with the nonprofit arm of your company, are there any specific barriers to entry you think regulators need to be more aware of as these things are shaking out?
Oh, there are so many barriers to entry in cannabis. I don't think we have enough time to discuss. But one thing I think is important for regulators to understand is the supply chain in the business of cannabis. And my lobbying experience, being a lead of a women-owned cultivation brand, a lot of times, I talk to elected officials, chief of staff, people at regulatory bodies, and they don't understand the cannabis industry. They either have a negative stigma because of maybe something that happened in their family in the past or something, or they just don't really understand the different license types, how serious the cannabis industry is. It's a real industry, real business. We're real professionals. We're not smoking all day and being lazy. We're really doing business. So a lot of times it's educating these regulatory bodies about the cannabis industry and what happens from A to B. What are gaps and issues that operators consistently have? A lot of times regulators don't even know. They're just, elected, or they're just, in government. They don't have experience with the plant or with the industry, or they maybe never been into a dispensary and found out what a bud tender is and what they do. So that's one thing, is just educating them. But a huge barrier to entry, I'm sure that a lot of people would agree on, is access to funding. And so when you speak about social equity applicants, I mean, it's very expensive to enter the cannabis industry, especially on the cultivation and processing side. Real estate alone, equipment alone, can cost you millions, plural, of dollars. So, I think when regulatory agencies kind of really look at the breakdown of costs it takes for a social equity applicant to start an operation, for instance, I think they need to step their game up into offering maybe low interest grants or low interest loans or something. I just really think they need to step their game up, because you cannot have a social equity program without giving access to funding. It's kind of just like a coupon. Like, yeah, you can give me a coupon, 20% off licensing fees, but then what? How do I find the real estate? How do I pay for staff? How do I buy expensive extraction equipment? So to me, social equity programs without access to capital are pointless.
Absolutely. I'm even hearing like in New York, that's part of like the conversations they're trying to, flesh things out, like are part of those tax dollars going to go to fund some of these equity licenses, because having licensed that access to capital, as you mentioned, it just doesn't go very far. And so I want to shift gears a little bit about something interesting about the Midwest. So Michigan, Illinois are generating, these billions of dollars of adult use sales, as we mentioned, but you're also surrounded by some very conservative states that won't even allow medical use, like Wisconsin, Indiana, Kansas, Nebraska. So do you guys think these neighboring states are closer to reconsidering their stance if they're seeing the economic opportunities that cannabis can create? Like we're seeing this like on the East Coast, when New Jersey went, like New York has been very quick after it, and Pennsylvania is talking about fast tracking their adult use program. What do you think will happen in the neighboring states?
I'll leave it to my Midwest colleagues here to answer that one. I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick. Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, especially during COVID, these cities and states are looking for ways to make money. They're losing money from tourism or whatever industry was fueling them before. They're losing money. I mean, New York has lost billions of dollars this last year from decrease in tourism dollars alone. So they're looking to activate cannabis programs because they're seeing their neighboring states making these millions and billions of dollars in tax revenue. So they're like, well, let's maybe pay more attention to what this cannabis is talking about. That's at least what I'm seeing from some of our neighbors.
Yeah, and frankly, just from employment, so if you think about it, a company like Gage, we employ close to 350 people. Each dispensary that we have can employ anywhere between 20 and 30 people, depending on how busy that particular dispensary is, and not all at the same time, obviously, but on a rotational basis. So if you actually think about the job creation that this particular industry is creating as well, I think it's getting noticed, right? So it's not so much, from a tax standpoint, okay, we're going to go legalize cannabis and we're going to actually have, X amount of tax revenue. You're getting that extra tax revenue, and then more importantly, you're creating jobs within your respective state, so that then those people thereafter can go and spend and support local businesses and support the local economy. So as a whole, I think, especially after a devastating circumstance that we've all been in with COVID, it's a no-brainer, right? It's actually foolish for some of these neighboring states not to be coming out with their own programs for adult use. It's foolish for there to be delays in some of these adult use progressions. At the end of the day, again, you're getting increased tax revenue, you're creating jobs, you're going to help your economy. And frankly, you're seeing in neighboring states like Michigan a great successful rollout. The state, not saying that they've done things perfectly, which, it's hard to do things perfectly, but again, very welcoming. They've increased their speed in terms of issuing licenses. They've increased the basically product array that you can have in Michigan. Frankly, whatever you can consume in a place like California, you can consume in Michigan. And so, long story short, it's not a good strategy to continue, shutting the door on cannabis in any state whatsoever. People need to actually open up their eyes, look at the cold hard facts, and actually realize that, it's a much, much better world for that particular state to welcome cannabis.
And mostly consumer support is there. I don't know specifically state by state, but nationwide, public support is there, bipartisan, support, and the lawmakers honestly just need to catch up and really recognize that is what the public wants.
Right. And, and as industry and insiders, we're aware of all these, amazing benefits. So, but do you think there's ways that, legal businesses like yourselves can showcase the positive community impact that cannabis can have? Like even we saw this like crazy, statement from Ricketts recently, that it causes like drug abuse, right? So how can we show community, how positive community impact the cannabis has? How can we do that?
Again, better regulations in order to support, proper research to encourage companies and give companies the resources, probably from the federal government or from the state, to actually go and conduct proper research to actually analyze, this so-called harm that still some of these politicians like to talk about. Again, it's an ignorant viewpoint, and unfortunately, we continue to be suppressed as an industry in a variety of ways, despite all the benefits that, you know, the industry brings to a variety of states. So it's with hope that as time progresses, regulations start to loosen up, the ability for a variety of, let's call it, industry participants to do proper research, to actually support the industry in a proper way, as if it was, you know, frankly, just give us the same benefits as the alcohol or even tobacco industry get, and frankly, we'd be really, really happy. So as we move along and actually get those benefits, I think you're going to see more and more numbers, more and more facts come out that show support, that actually, you know, come with a reference point for some of these individuals versus just, you know, talking frankly off the top of their head, saying, you know, oh, it's not a good thing, it's going to kill you, or it's going to kill your children, or things, you know, silly things along those lines, because again, there's absolutely zero justification for that these days.
It's also encouraging these operators like ourselves to actually get into the community. So not only writing checks to local nonprofits or whatever, but actually making our face and our brands known in the community. So the community can then have a positive reference with cannabis, because they'll see, oh, I see this cannabis brand in my community, and ever since they came in my community, the parks are better, or there's less crime, or I'm seeing, you know, this street cleaned up. Like, start to actually make your brand and face known, because for years we have seen this negative stigma to cannabis, and the only way that we're going to try to reverse that or erase that is actually going into the community and connecting with people and educating them. Because a lot of people have negative views on the cannabis industry because of their lack of education. So if we're actually there face to face, or, you know, COVID, whatever, but just actually there being touchable and reachable and being there to educate them about the positive benefits of cannabis, about the testing that we have to do on our products, about the fact that we are regulated, so kids can't just come into the store and buy joints, you know, but the fact when we're there to educate the community, I think that's really when the positive impact can come, because we really have a lot of work to do from a lot of years of this negative stigma. I mean, there's been so many years of weed is bad, marijuana is bad, it can kill, it's a gateway drug. So slowly but surely, we as a legal industry have to work with the community to make them feel better about the plant, to make our community, you know, trust that our businesses are good, are legitimate, and serve as a positive impact to the community versus us coming into the community taking away from the community. But we have to be there to educate them, or else they're just gonna look to the media or to some senator saying crazy stuff. They're just gonna listen to what they say if we're not there saying the positive side.
Another point, I have to give credit to a former panelist I was on with a few weeks ago, Khadija Tribble at Curaleaf. She runs CSR there. She was making the point just about really kind of like longer or more forward-looking, creating the next set of leaders in, you know, at the college level. And so like really pushing for cannabis track majors in some of the HBCUs, and you know, a lot of those are in more rural areas, so that like that has a really nice connection to like cultivation and supply chain and all of that. So, you know, looking forward 10, 15 years, who are going to be the legislators, who are going to be the CEOs, who are going to be the entrepreneurs? Let's start, you know, putting together the educational programs and resources to set them up to be the leaders of tomorrow.
I love that. And in terms of tomorrow, as a final question for all of you, what future expansion opportunities do you guys see in Michigan or in this as a whole? I'd love each your perspective on what the future of Michigan and Midwest looks like. You want to start, Meredith?
Yeah, well, I think the thing I'm most excited about right now really is the partnership with Rebecca's organization and our launching Detroit Cannabis Project. But for Lantern, we're expanding to Grand Rapids in the next couple of weeks, and we're expanding our coverage in Detroit, including service out of Hamtramck, and I surely hope I said that correctly to you Michiganders. But yeah, we're continuing to expand in Detroit and moving out to Grand Rapids, and then excited to launch the incubator.
Anybody else?
I'll go.
I was just.
Go ahead. Actually, go ahead. Go ahead, Rebecca. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have been awaiting Detroit to turn on this adult use green light. So that's what our focus is on. Being a legacy Detroiter myself and being an operator myself, I cannot tell you how just upset I am that Detroit has been dragging their feet for so long. We've been seeing all these suburbs surrounding us just make all this money and do all this fun stuff in the adult use market, and Detroit has been dragging their feet. So the fact that it's finally here in 2021, that's what I'm excited about. And the numbers look amazing now in Michigan, but can you imagine what the adult use numbers are going to look like when Detroit sales come in? So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And Fabian, let's kick it off with you. Finish off with you.
Yeah, obviously I'm equally as excited about Detroit, but I think, I'm equally excited about, frankly, expansion into a whole variety of other cities that we have planned. A lot of them in and around Detroit as well to, obviously take advantage of the demand while we wait for Detroit to get their things in order. But all in all, I just think Michigan is going to surprise a lot of people with its growth. I think Gage as a brand, as a company, is going to surprise a lot of people with its growth as well. And, again, we're gunning for that number 3 spot in 2021. I think Michigan has a good shot, and it's going to really, really surprise people just how much, the Michigan population consumes when it comes to cannabis, and just how much that particular population embraces the plant and how much they appreciate the plant.
Well, I'm excited to see how Michigan shapes up. Thank you, panelists, so much. Rebecca, Meredith, Fabian, for joining us today. Thank you, Growth, for having us. And looking forward to the future of Michigan.